Is Yixuan Miyabi level? Can Yixuan beat Miyabi? Is Yixuan a Void Hunter? Is Yixuan higher value than Miyabi? Is Yixuan stronger than Miyabi? Is Yixuan taller than Miyabi? Does Yixuan have bigger ears? No. She's probably taller though. I've been getting these questions constantly. I feel a need to make a video explaining my thought process on why I've been answering it doesn't matter. Because people haven't liked this answer, but I feel it is the truth. No, Yixuan is not stronger than Miyabi. Yixuan does not do as much damage on paper as Miyabi from our current projections. Does that mean Yixuan is not, I'm quoting the developers here, the Void Hunter level investigator whose power rivals the Void Hunter? No, actually. That quote is not necessarily wrong because of how boss mechanics and challenge lineups are designed to effectively make characters good in a way besides give them literal damage. Before we talk about anything new, let's talk about Deadly Assault and specifically Bringer. This is Bringer, okay? You see Bringer? He's got the big hand. Creator, revive me! That guy. All right, cool. It's an Ice Week boss whose mechanic is that he applies 30% daze to himself after the hand is broken. Bringer is a freezable boss. He also has an additional stage buff, which is up to 48% attack for applying anomaly to him. This is a massive stat steroid, specifically only for anomaly agents. There is also a second Bringer named Notorious Dead End Butcher. Notorious Dead End Butcher is very similar, where you do less damage to him unless you apply anomaly. He's also an Ice Week boss. These two bosses together are the Miyabi force picks. They also have more HP than any other Deadly Assault boss, so they are more difficult for other agents to clear, even despite the mechanical disadvantage of not interacting with the stage buffs. So there are two layers to the difficulty for these bosses, which is the literal HP and not interacting with the stage buff. These two bosses have been in every Deadly Assault lineup since its introduction, except for two. And those two exceptions were right next to each other. These are the Miyabi force picks. When you see them in a lineup, the only real viable option to tackle these challenges is Miyabi. They exist for you to be rewarded for playing Miyabi. That is also why they are so common. This is the new weekly / story / Deadly Assault boss. He currently does not have as much HP as Bringer, but he is 20% Ether weak, 40% ice resistant, has anomaly buildup resistance, and when in miasma, they will get additional anomaly buildup resistance and a defense increase. The stage mechanic also gives you crit damage for attacking it while it is weakened. So this boss is not as difficult as Bringer. I want to establish that now. There is less pressure in version 2.0 to use Yixuan than there is pressure to use Miyabi. However, humor me for a minute. Like, comment, subscribe. We're going to try to do more Zenless content. More Genshin content is coming. Did you know most of you watching are not currently subscribed? You should subscribe. Let's say we trust what the developers say and they aren't just trying to sell you a character. That Yixuan is of equal importance, and she is the new Miyabi for the next 6 months to a year. There are 4 Deadly Assault lineups in version 2.0. One of them starts in version 1.7, so we're going to ignore that. So of the 3 new lineups in version 2.0, it will head into version 2.1. They are one with the new boss, one with Bringer, and then one with the new boss again. There is currently no lineup that has both the new boss and a Miyabi force pick boss at the same time. Meaning that this new boss is effectively replacing Bringer in Deadly Assault lineups. If you are worried about weakness for Hugo, Ellen, or Miyabi, don't. Literally half of the bosses that can appear in Deadly Assault are Ice Week. It's basically impossible for them to draft a lineup that doesn't have a single Ice Week enemy. It is basically impossible. But so yes, there is still an Ice Week boss for you. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about specifically this new boss and what it means if it is as present as Bringer has been. This content is designed to reward you for having pulled the title character. It does this by effectively punishing players for not having them by making the content much more difficult. Because the way the challenges are designed is for the path of least resistance, or the easiest possible way to do these bosses, to have a specific character. There is a less extreme version of this chill, actually, in Pompei. Both versions of Pompei, but we're going to specifically focus on, well, it doesn't matter. Both versions of Pompei, technically. The Fire Week bosses. I am someone who does a lot of Deadly Assault help for viewers. After Bringer, this is the boss people struggle with the most. This is because there aren't a ton of options for fire damage. Pompei has not been nearly as present as the Ice Week duo of Bringer and Notorious Dead and Butcher. I'm just going to say Bringer as a shorthand for both. Just know that I mean both. Don't try to actually me, please. It is not impossible to do either of the Bringers without Miyabi, but it is more difficult. It is not impossible to do Pompei without Evelyn, but it is more difficult. Thankfully, Pompei is much less prevalent than Bringer. Pompei is also easier to play other agents against because his HP pool is lower. So because of the HP pool, you should expect the new boss to be more similar to Pompei than Bringer difficulty-wise for other agents. However, the ice resistance and anomaly buildup resistance do add wrinkles to that, especially with how prevalent ice is among our DPSs. Technically, the most represented element is electric, though. I do need to mention that. Electric has the most agents, most DPS agents. Electric and Fizz equally. Sure is weird that all of the electric bosses are easy and there's no Fizz weak boss. Bruh. Anyway, yeah, oopsies. What is important to highlight is that Yixuan trivializes this new boss, while also not necessarily taking Astra from your available roster of characters for other challenges. I want to bring your attention over here. So let's talk about on paper damage. This number here is Miyabi Mono Ice on paper. This is neutral, where the enemy is freezable, and you can do all of your enhanced basic attacks because the enemy is freezable. This is when the enemy is Ice Weak, and this is Ice Weak with a Deadly Assault buff. It should be a little high, it's fine. So let's say this is Bringer. I'm not factoring the stage buff because I didn't know how to factor it for the new boss. So let's say this is our height, this is our neutral, and this is what happens when we play into the matchup. The new boss has 40% ice resistance, but before we even get to that, this is what happens when the enemy is unfreezable. You are more likely to play a different team, but the statement stands. You are losing damage when the enemy is unfreezable. This is what would happen with 40% ice resistance, and this is ice resistance and a defense increase. Do you see how we have literally cut our damage in half? Because the HP pool is currently low enough, you will be able to get 20k with Miyabi. I don't know how long that will last on the new boss, but yeah, you can technically do it if you really want to torture yourself. Have fun, I guess. Let's talk about Yixuan. So, big disclaimer on this, Yixuan is not released. I do not know if these are the best combos you could possibly do, or if they're correct at all. Also worth disclaiming, Jofufu does non-negligible damage, and I'm not including her. I'm not including her damage contribution here, just for simplicity. Okay, this is regular Yixuan. Because Yixuan is a rupture agent, she completely ignores enemy defense. If an enemy has plus 40% defense, her damage is the same. If an enemy has plus 80%, her damage is the same. If an enemy has 100% extra defense, her damage is the same. This is what happens when an enemy is Ether Weak, and this is Ether Weak with the Deadly Assault buff. You don't know what the Deadly Assault buff is. It is 40 ether damage bonus, 30 HP percent, 15% energy and adrenaline regen rate, and 40% ultimate damage bonus. That is the one that is in 2.0. There may be others in the future, but that's what's in 2.0. The other note, we may get a limited support agent who upgrades Yixuan's damage, and that would immediately date all of these numbers because they'd be straight up wrong. Or they'd be misleading because Yixuan could be designed for a limited agent who does not exist currently. Cool. So you see these damage numbers, and I want to point out that Yixuan is literally doing essentially double Miyabi's damage against this new encounter. That is how shill works. That's how matchup and weakness and resistance work. While Yixuan is not the strongest DPS in the game, she is the strongest DPS in the game for this new challenge. And how prevalent this new challenge is ultimately unknown. But if they want to continue to push her as the Void Hunter level investigator whose power rivals Void Hunters, it needs to be mentioned that the content where Yixuan does outperform everyone else exists, and it's very relevant. So you can consider this your public service announcement against doom posting, because it's easy to look at neutral performance and go, oh, Yixuan sucks. But it's much harder to take a step back and actually look at the context that the game will be under. This is very speculative, and if you want to take this in bad faith and say Yixuan is not as good as Miyabi, and that is bad, go for it. You could also very easily take this and say Yixuan will be bad by the time she reruns because her beneficial content will disappear. And you know what? Fly that flag. Go for it. I'm telling you, there is likely to be a significant period of time where the content will reward you for having Yixuan. Is she mandatory? No. No agent is mandatory. But I did want to take a moment to talk about content design. There's also the factor that Rupture completely ignores enemy defense. While this new boss in 2.0 isn't that big of a deal for other agents to tackle, there's no guarantee the next one won't be worse. Yixuan is a very good, let's say upper echelon DPS, who could be very important to have depending on how they design content. She is not the absolute strongest character in the game, but she may be the most important character in the game for a period of time, which is the thing I am most worried about, and it's why I'm making this video. And it's why I always answer the questions about, is Yixuan as good as Miyabi, with the answer of, it doesn't matter, because of how FOMO works and how the content works. It doesn't matter that she's not as good as Miyabi. She could be just as important. This does not just apply to Yixuan, but this is the best opportunity to mention it.